It's 5:30 and we're all here, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are privileged to meet on the Stolo, unceded traditional territory of the Puyallup, Chilliwack, and Smath. When we talk about unceded territory and we talk about people being the original caretakers of this land, I think it's important to recognize the difference in our relationship to the land if we are the descendants of settlers versus if we're Indigenous peoples in this community. For example, I grew up in Yarrow, and in school I learned about the draining of Sumas Lake and how that created farmland, and it was presented as a engineering triumph. And then it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned about how the Smath people in particular, and the Stalo people in general, use Sumas Lake as a food source, as a source of building material for their homes and the basket weaving and all of that. And so that draining of that lake was a huge loss to the people. And so I think it's a huge loss, like really bad. I think it's important to think about how my relationship to Yarrow, which is where I grew up, it would be different than an Indigenous person's relationship to that same community. And I think that's the kind of thinking we need to think about when we're proceeding with reconciliation. The board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation and gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Trustee Bondar, seconded by Trustee Westerby. Are there any comments on the agenda? Great, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? Thank you, trustees. That passes. That's unanimous. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please? Trustee Reed, seconded by Trustee Swanky. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we are moving on to presentations, and that first one is 2.1 Strategic Plan Presentation, Strategic Plan Highlights 2022-2023. I believe, is this okay.
Thanks, Board Chair. So let me just set the stage. I'm really elated to be able to set the stage for our new strategic plan highlights. For the very first time, this is going to be a highlight provided by the Board of Education for the 2022-2023 school year. This is our first year producing this report on behalf of the Board of Education, and the report has stories from the 4 goal areas that are outlined in our STRAP plan: literacy, numeracy, human and social development, and transitions. With the end of the report clearly identifying how we are doing in terms of foundational skills assessments and information about our 6-year completion rates. It also highlights the priorities for next year. The report is going to be posted on our website, as well as we'll use social media to share the good news information, and this will be a continuation of this report on a yearly basis for us to highlight the great work done and supported by the Board of Education. These reports take a lot of planning and time and effort. I really want to take this opportunity in public to acknowledge Joanne Breton, she's a Canada expert, tons of time behind the scenes, being able to prep the information. She's been instrumental in collecting all of her STRAP plan stories since last September, and she's done that. I also recognize Dr. Kirk Savage, who has taken the responsibility of putting this report together. So Kirk, thank you very much to you and Joanne, and over to you to be able to share highlights.
Okay, good evening. As Superintendent Robergazin mentioned, he kind of did an overview of the report, the goal of the report, what we're hoping to accomplish, and today I'm just going to be showing again a bit of an advertisement. It's almost a 40-page report, so it is in the board package, so folks can take a look at it in the package. But I'm just going to go through and do a bit of an advertisement of what it contains, and yeah, a bit of a high-level piece here. So, it's this strategic plan year in review documents and highlights and celebrates the work we did in schools this past year. It doesn't include all the stories, so you can imagine that there's so many things that happen in schools, and this is certainly from more of an educational standpoint. It doesn't capture, for instance, the stories from facilities or from our HR department, or this is around what happens in schools. And again, it doesn't get all of them. It's a smattering. And so broken up into 7 main areas. introduction, there's a literacy, numeracy, transitions, and then human and social. Those are the pieces from our goals from our strategic plan. A little bit on how we're doing, and then a piece on where we're going next. The how we're doing will be more fulsome in the festival report, which you will see we will be completing over the summer, and that will be something that the board will see in the fall, which is a fulsome update on our data and where we're at with our achievement. So in the literacy piece, there are a number of stories there. We talk about the story on the reading and writing framework development, which is very exciting. You can see that on the slide on the right in the infographic there. Our elementary literacy collaboration project, which the board has heard lots about. We're very excited that that's highlighted in here, that work. Reading intervention at elementary schools and at middle schools were key pieces and lots of stories from those initiatives included in the report. Some creative literacy projects, and then our literacy initiatives at secondary schools. So that highlights some of the literacy pieces. Meeting kids in small groups 4 times a week was very successful and allowed students to feel more confident. So there's also quotes from teachers and students and staff throughout the report. Numeracy, our stories, we have a numeracy framework development that was done this spring, which is highlighted. Our FSA with CARE project. The whole piece around, in numeracy, we've seen a pedagogical shift in the last 18 months in our district around moving to in math classes to using vertical surfaces to show student thinking and learning, and where teachers can see students working together and their thinking showing up on the walls around the classroom. So you'll see a lot more whiteboards showing up in our classrooms, and definitely a shift around the vertical surfaces. A piece around common resources, and of course there's some exciting work around indigenizing curriculum.
Trustee Westerby, do you have a question?
I can't.
Oh. We believe that numeracy.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? If that ever happens, that's a point of personal privilege. You can say that, it immediately stops the meeting, and you can raise something where you're not able to participate in the meeting. That's just so you know, you can say it. Point of personal privilege.
Perfect. Quoted, we believe that numeracy is the ability to understand and apply mathematical concepts, processes, and skills to solve problems in a variety of contexts. So that's quote from our helping teachers. In the area of human and social development, our stories include a family affordability fund, which was a new initiative this year, numerous mental health strategies, stories on our physical literacy initiative, which is also an exciting thing that's happening in our elementary schools, accessibility, and then student engagement. So some good stories to check out on that goal area. I'm more excited about school and making change from a critical student. Our fourth area is transitions. We highlight here competency-based IEP work, which was a major goal for our district this year. We started in August with talking about that, and throughout the school year, focused on improving that portion of our assessment and planning and ensuring that we're supporting all of our students. There's integrated arts and technology stream stories. We have pieces around just before preschool, early learning, transitions to middle school, transitioning to secondary and post-secondary, trade sampler, and then a piece around Money Alpha as well, which presented to the board I think just a month ago or so. So pieces in there. The job of the competency-based IEP is to connect the goals and strategies in every IEP to the classroom in a meaningful way and to build on the strengths of each child. Where we're headed, this is for next year. These are pieces that we see as being goals that we're going to be focusing on. Truth and reconciliation, continued work with the elementary literacy collaboration project. Competency-based IEPs is not a one-year journey, that's a multi-year journey, so we'll be working on that. Communicating student learning, we front and center. Our 90-day cycles, which the board has been getting updates on our strategic plan, will carry on. And then, of course, all the work with childcare and those pieces. And that's it. You will see, as Superintendent mentioned, we will have, this will come out on our website tomorrow morning. We'll be putting out some pieces on social media to share these stories. So thank you very much. Any questions?
So just to clarify, it'll be on the website and also still available. The whole thing is in the package.
Oh, it's in the-
so,
yes.
But also a separate link on the website. Okay, great. Can you push your button? Okay. Trustees, do you have any questions about anything you read in the package? I know we all had this beforehand, but okay. I don't. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. I guess the first was just my appreciation for the report and particularly highlighting the how are we doing and the where are we going sections of the report. I think there's a thoughtful, though perhaps challenging articulation of where we sit as a district, so my appreciation. I also, there is, just as a board member, there's information in here that's new to me. I did not realize that we had nearly 1,100 pre-K students that we support in our district, so I think it's a really great tool to showcase to the community the good work that we're doing. Just as a question, we did identify where this can be available. If members of the public had questions or wanted to provide further feedback, what's the most productive avenue for them to do that? Is it through the board, through the superintendent? Is there any identified means of providing feedback or providing a question?
They can always use the board email address to send the questions to the Board of Education, and then that can be funneled through the staff.
And the board email address is board@sd33.bc.ca. Thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent. I think it's really great that we're going to do this now. If we have a strategic plan, we should look at what we've been doing on the strategic plan. So I really appreciate all the work of staff doing that for us. Thank you. Okay, so not seeing any further questions, we'll move on to information items. So 3.1 is the BCSTA report. Trustee Reed?
Yeah, so we're winding up for the year. There's not really much to be reported. You all received the BCSTA emails. I'll just highlight a couple of things. Trustee Academy date has been verified. That'll be popped in our calendars soon, I'm sure. And they have mentioned that everyone in BC is encouraged to take the BC Demographic Survey. It's to help address systemic racism and improve public services. So not only are we encouraged to take it, we're encouraged to push it out to the public at large as well. Social media and different partner groups, perhaps. It is a very important survey for those reasons. And then, of course, they do have their orientations highlighted as well. There's 3 in the upcoming autumn season, and there's some pretty interesting ones in there. So that's just in the email that they recently sent out, the links for the demographic survey as well. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee Reed. Any questions by trustees on the BCSTA report? Seeing none, we'll move on to trustee written reports. So those of us who did them are in the package, and I just want to highlight for you all, I'm not sure you saw it, but Trustee Moss did submit a notice of motion, so you can read that at your leisure over the summer. Okay, so we're moving on to public participation. This is comments or questions concerning the agenda. When you come to the mic, press the button, say your name and your relationship to the district. Remember that we are not calling out individuals by name or identifying individual students, staff, or trustees, and no discriminatory or defamatory language, please. Okay, great.
Hi, Danielle Bennett, President, Chilliwack Teachers Association. I just had one question based on the report that Dr. Savage shared. Has the district considered that when we compare 2 years of FSA scores, would it not be better to compare, or more beneficial to compare the grade 4 scores from 3 years previous with the current year's grade 7 scores? As comparing the 2 consecutive years is like comparing apples and oranges, as we're looking at 2 very different cohorts of students. So it kind of leads us to a misrepresentation of data when we compare 2021-22 scores with 2022-23 scores.
Superintendent or assistant superintendent?
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for the question. Yeah, you're totally right. Like, it would be great, and we have considered doing the cohort data as well. It's another way to show it, and it would be more. It would be the same group of, more similar group of students comparing year to year. So, yeah, good point. Thank you.
Trustee Bonner?
Yeah, can I just ask a follow-up to that? Is that data available? Is it something that we could choose to pull and look at any time? Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aggie Becker. I'm a parent of students in your district, and I'm also an education assistant in District 33. I wanted to speak to the repeal of policy 524, physical restraint and seclusion of students in school settings. I'm strongly against repealing this policy. Physical restraint and seclusion occurs in our district. Keeping the policy is, in my opinion, of utmost importance because, first and foremost, it protects our students and it also protects the employees of our district. We have a lot of children that are nonverbal, that have a lot of challenges and aren't able to express things that happen to them at school. They are very vulnerable. They need to be protected. I feel that it's also going to protect the district employees by setting out a policy of what to do in particular situations without leaving room for interpretation. I'm concerned with the language in the proposed admin procedure. Under guidelines, it states the district recommends a hands-off policy. I think recommends, the word is very loose, and it leaves too much room for interpretation. So like what I think the word recommend means and what someone else does is quite different. Our students need to feel safe, and when they attend school, they need to feel that they will not be harmed or restrained or locked in a room or taken away from class. So yeah, I just really feel that we shouldn't repeal that policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Aggie.
Katie Bartel, DPAC Chair. Just first wanted to echo Dave's words about the strat plan, the year-end review thing. Beautiful work. I really liked seeing it in a very clear, wonderful way. I don't know who made it exactly, but it was well done. And so, quick question, how do the board and partners provide meaningful input into admin procedures? There's a lot of repeals proposed, a lot of procedures shown, but I don't know, I'm very unclear as to what the oversight is and how we, our partners and parents or community members are able to provide that, and what is the process for revision of those, and how often are they revised and looked at, and that kind of idea. I have a follow-up question after that, but okay. Superintendent, can you answer?
I can, great question. So first of all, regarding admin procedures, partners can always provide feedback through the Board of Education. I'll have the board email. That's easy, that way the board.
board@sd33.bc.ca.
And then once the feedback is received, and because we look after admin procedures, that'll be, if it's gonna be DPAC or some sort of committee, we can engage in those conversations. Those are green documents, they're gonna be on the public site. And then the next step is we're gonna go through a cycle every 4 years. So realistically, once you're done the admin procedure, we'll start the cycle again of reviewing those admin procedures. As well as once you've gotten the feedback from our partners, we also send that through our school principals to garner feedback. So you can give feedback through that email address to the staff.
So the feedback, so you make the thing, you put the draft on the website, and then you get feedback that way? Okay.
Thank you. So generally, we would normally send it through a PVP to our administrators, and then it's on our public site. If there are going to be changes, you will then send information back to the Board of Education. We'll do another refinement of that. Those are green documents.
Is there a process, exactly a timeline for that revision? So you get feedback, I send my opinion. You like my opinion or you don't like my opinion, is there any oversight for that?
Yes, there'll be lots of communication back and forth to make sure that we are really clear on the changes. But just to clarify, once you've gone through an iteration of the admin procedures, they're on the website, there's still a green document. Any member of the public, any member of our partner group can provide some feedback regarding something they've seen, just like existing regulations.
And then 4 years after that, everyone kind of looks over it again.
Soon as we finish the policy manual analysis, we're going to start the cycle again of reviewing all of our policy and our admin procedures.
Got it. All right, and then follow up is I echo Aggie's statements. I really feel strongly and personally strongly against repealing that and the policy 524. And I think there needs to be a partner discussion, opportunity for feedback. It's a really important, big deal, and it needs a fulsome conversation. I can't give all of my opinions here about it, so we need more conversation about that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. Superintendent, can I just ask a follow-up about Katie's first question about admin procedures? So the board is not drafting or approving admin procedures. They're just sort of on the website. So when there is an admin procedure that's not attached to a policy, where does the board interface with that? I think that was part of the question, kind of, or the board or the public, because it's not the board's not passing them. So how would
Thank you. So a couple of things to provide clarity. First of all, not all of the admin procedures are open because some are belonging to the business section by itself. Anything that is relevant and educational, and especially around, if you look at the policy manual, there are different sections of it that pertain to our partners providing feedback. Those admin procedures, partners can provide feedback once you're on our website. And they are green in nature because once we actually send them to our PVP and put them on our website, we can start getting feedback from our partner group. So it's ongoing. We continue to evolve and gather feedback to ensure we can actually have best practice in relation to those admin procedures. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're still learning this whole thing. The whole policy manual review has been interesting. We've only done it once, so once we finish it, we'll be doing it again. I think the question is sort of, with a policy, it's very clear. Someone could come to the board and say, your policy is terrible, pass a new policy. With an admin procedure, like the board isn't passing those. So I guess it's a little more confusing, possibly, for the public.
And that's why, and I think we work very closely with our partner groups. Again, if the policy is under the purview of EPAC, and then those admin procedures still can be provided feedback at any given point via email back to the Board of Education. I do like the board's email because there's some level of accountability, and the board is also then in the know-how regarding the questions asked by our partners.
And once again, the board email, board at sc33.bc.ca does go to all of the trustees, but it also goes to the superintendent. So that's why suggesting that goes there, because he will get it, and then also all the trustees will see it as well.
Danielle Bennett, President Chilliwack Teachers Association, one other question. Regarding policy 608, I saw the admin regulations for that. Has the district considered how to support students who have emotional support animals? These are animals that are prescribed by a therapist rather than medical professional and don't fit under the guide dog or service dog policies.
Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you for that question. So one of the changes, or the significant changes that we're bringing forward, is to move away from the two policies that really had no room for assistance dogs other than that situation. So if you look at the procedures, there's some space now for assistance dogs in a classroom, and there's some guidelines around that. So there still needs to be the certification, but now it's broader than just for a particular student with an IEP. It's more assistance dogs within the classroom.
Hi, I'm Alina Karahashi. I'm here with Project AIM. I'm also a parent of SD33. We are here to, we wanted to comment on policy 433, the menstrual provision. I guess further to the concerns about vandalism. It's our belief that the reduction of vandalism can be achieved through education and destigmatization and normalization of menstruation, and also the normalization of barrier-free access. So as barrier-free access becomes more ubiquitous, there'll be reductions in hoarding and things like that. As far as reducing the stigma of using a dispenser in a boys' bathroom, the dispensers range from $35 to $600, and the larger $600 ones tend to be the big lobby area ones, whereas, I'm sorry, I didn't make it back to AIM office to grab our sample, but there are ones that are about the size of a cereal bowl. They go in the individual stall. If you want to see one in action, there's one at MLA Kelly Patton's office. It's individualized pads on a roll. So yeah, since the concern regarding the boys' bathroom is wastage and vandalism, even one boy bathroom per school, this company provides a sticker to put on the door of that particular bathroom. So we've done the math. You can do a 12-stall bathroom for the price of one large lobby area one, which we also don't really recommend for a school environment because you don't do the silly stuff in the stall, right? You're in the lobby area and you're with your friends and you see the thing and let's mess with it. So I think I'm over my time. Oh, I'm not. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena.
I didn't have a question, so.
That's fine, it's comments or questions now, we've changed the rules. Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions, so we'll be moving on to number 5, action items. The first one is 5.1 capital plan. Secretary Treasurer, right?
So what you have in front of you in the pack tonight is a full motion, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to read them all out, but to do with the capital plan that we're required to submit to the BC Ministry once a year. And what we do is we submit a plan at this time of year, and we're submitting for, wait for it, the 24-25 school year. So not the school year that's coming up in September, but the year after that. So I guess that's just important to know. And then there's 4 different plans that we've got data for this time. One is the major items, which is school buildings, additions, land. Minor, Al, what are we in the minor? That's sort of roofs and HVAC. Oh.
Yes, exactly. So the minor is school enhancement plan, which is roofs. It could be heating systems. Flooring is now included in there, and this is major replacement, and not just minor. And then in the CNCP, carbon neutral, and that's all about HVAC funding, reducing our carbon offset, reducing our carbon. And BEP, which is our building envelope. You've seen we've been successful at East Chilliwack and a few other sites. Those are major ones.
The last one is it's a new one for the Feeding Futures program, so we're being allowed to apply for some equipment for that, and you'll see in the package we're requesting a couple of kettles, which are basically big pots that stand on the floor, and a truck to move food around the district. Now, there are 2 things that we've left off, and one of them actually doesn't open until later in the year in any case, and that is buses. And there's a second bite at the food infrastructure, so we'll be bringing those to you in September. But the majority of what you see in front of you tonight is actually statutorily, well, I think it's statutorily, but we're required to submit it to the Ministry on the 30th of June. So, does anybody have any questions?
So I'm thinking, I think it really doesn't take that long to do them individually, and I think it just might be easier if we do one motion and then we can ask questions on it, because they're quite different from each other, and then if there are no questions, we just pass it and move on to the next one, that's fine. So if I could get someone to make them first, and we'll, sorry. Oh. Sorry, we're gonna call a brief recess for technical difficulties, apparently the sound isn't working properly. For the public, is that correct? Okay, yeah, so for the public, sorry, the public's not hearing people watching at home, so we're just gonna take a brief recess and see if we can fix the technical issues. Sorry everyone at home.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting back to order. Thank you, everybody. Sorry to anyone watching at home. We are aware that there's a weird echo in the audio. We don't seem to be able to fix it. It sounds normal in here, but apparently it sounds a little odd out there. So anyway, I'm told you can hear, but with a weird repeat. So I've also been told to talk slower, but good luck with that. I don't think that's gonna happen. I'll try my best. Okay, so we're now moving on to, we're on the capital plan. So basically, so we've got the first motion there. Trustees, you can see it before you. I am gonna ask someone to make the motion, but does anyone have any questions about the first motion before we proceed to having it on the table? Trustee Spanky?
Sure, thank you. I did have two questions just reviewing the capital plan submissions for 23-24 and 22-23. The first was just both 22-23 and 23-24 included a request of a SHIEM addition, and I did not see that reflected. I was hoping for clarity on that. Additionally, an LME addition was slated for the 23-24 submission. It was not included here, so I was just hoping clarity on, we have some priorities, others have been removed. Wondered what the thinking was there.
Thank you for the question. Looking at SHIM, we're seeing that we have a really good opportunity for a new East Side Elementary on the old Rosedale site. With that opportunity coming, it has, like I say, it has good traction with ministry. Ministry is very interested, supportive, and we're hoping to see that one happen. That will allow us to make some adjustments and with that new elementary school. So that is the reason you're seeing the SHIM priority will drop. LME, I cannot actually come up with the specifics on that one for you right now. I can do some looking back and see what's there. I think one of the things with this is the ministry is looking at our top priorities. The ones as we move down the priority list, they're there. We have them waiting in case there's some opportunity, but really they're looking at 1 and 2. That's pretty much it.
Okay, Trustee Sankey?
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I also wanted to just draw a question from these site acquisitions, if I may. The proposed submission for this year includes the acquisition of 2 sites, one being a new school site, the other being, I believe, would be a variety of potential acquisitions to allow for extensions or expansions of school sites. Believe it was 6 school site submissions were included in 23-24 and 5 in 22-23. And I was just hoping for clarity on why we've gone from asking for several to just asking for 2. I guess my concern is a little bit, we've asked for the funding for 3 new schools, but only 1 actual new site for a new school, and I just wanted to make sure we're properly communicating priorities to the ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of conversation happening between us and the ministry. As we look at these 2 property that you mentioned, these would fit the requirements that we see potentially happening. Again, we do list a variety of options for the ministry. We found that useful in the past, but when we're focusing on the actual land that we need for those opportunities, these will complement our asks, and they also are running parallel with what the ministry is suggesting we do and put in place.
I just had one additional point, and that is we did actually get approved for both a new addition this year and a new site acquisition. So for the 23-24 year, we've actually removed some items because they've been approved. But as Al said, we talk with the ministry every week or every 2 weeks, and in light of where we are and our enrollment projections, that was where we landed for this year. That was the recommendation.
If I may have a follow-up, Chair?
Yes.
I suppose my only concern was if by going from 5 and then 6 requests to 2, it somehow lessened the sense of urgency for capital investment in our district. And if I'm understanding from staff, that is not the case. This is a more fair articulation of what we may expect from them and what we can reasonably handle in the year ahead. And we'll see what that investment is, but we'll keep asking so long as that need exists in our district. Correct?
And just to comment on that, what sets the priority is the population growth, the student growth. Also with with this government, the number of portables you have too. So looking at portables, those are the real priorities that the ministry is looking at as we receive funding.
Okay, those are questions out of the way. Of course, you can still ask questions when the motion is on the table as well. Trustee Steck, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I would move that the Board of Education, School District Number 33, Chilliwack, in accordance with provisions under Section 142(4) of the School Act, approve the proposed major capital programs in the 5-year capital plan for 24-25 as provided on the 5-year capital plan summary outlined in the attached document.
Seconder. Trustee Bondar. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Only briefly, I'll note my appreciation for a more thorough breakdown than I think we've received in the past for these submissions. So I really appreciate the information the foundation brought from staff. Also, as was already raised by our Secretary Treasurer, my appreciation for the work, because there has been a great deal of success in communicating our priorities as a district to the ministry and in garnering that investment from the ministry to support students. So I think this is a good plan. I think any questions I had were not reservations, and they were addressed by staff. And I think we'll hope that this is supported by government.
Other trustees? Okay, I just had a question. The plan looks good to me. It makes good sense based on what I know about the district. I just had a couple little questions. When it says like 40K and 200E, is that kindergarten and elementary?
Yes, correct.
And then my second question was, I was a little bit just curious about why the projected cost of Cultus Lake Elementary would be more than the Sardis Elementary one, given the fact that it's slightly fewer students. So I'm just wondering, is it something about the site and site preparation or something? It's not a huge difference. I was just curious.
Excuse me. A lot of times as we're doing, there's infrastructure upgrades. So some of the sites you'll see we've been very successful. GWG, when it was built, had a potential for the addition. So those are great opportunities. So this is really the investment in the infrastructure. And just doing quick, I know there's an electrical service upgrade that's required. That's quite a substantial dollar amount. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the things in the building that aren't going to, when it's all done, you're not even going to notice them, but they're going to allow the building to run.
So it would possibly also reflect like when the last time that school experienced any kind of renovations versus another one. Like there might be more things like electrical that needs to be upgraded at Cultus Lake, for example, than at Sardis. It's about $100,000 difference. It's not huge, like it is for obviously a family, but for the district budget. But I couldn't quite do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's connection, the connection points as we and even getting down to the material that's on the surface of the exterior building. So as if we're connecting to a building that's wood, it's a much higher code as we make that connection to it. If we're connecting to a block building, it is a more relaxed, slightly change in requirements. So those things add to our cost as we look at it.
Excellent. And then the last one question was just, it says land purchase for Chilliwack Middle. It means a middle school in Chilliwack, not for Chilliwack Middle, the school, correct?
Yes, correct.
Are there any other questions or comments or speaking to the motion, trustees? Okay, then all those in favor that the Board of Education approve the proposed major programs in the 5-year capital plan as presented. That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so we're on to the second motion about minor capital programs. Does anyone have any questions about those before we move to the motion? All right, can I get someone to make the motion, please? Trustee Reed.
I move that the Board of Education of School District Number 33, Chilliwack, in accordance with provisions under Section 142(4) of the School Act, approve the proposed minor capital programs in the 5-year capital plan for 2024-25, as provided on the 5-year capital plan summary outlined in the attached document.
Thank you, is there a seconder? Trustee Westerby, thank you. Trustee Reed, do you want to speak to your motion?
I appreciate all the hard work that went into it by staff, and I would echo Trustee Swanky's comments about how it's broken down, and I'm very appreciative of that. As both a new trustee, and it sounds like our incumbents feel that way as well, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just had one question, since there's so many HVAC updates on the list. I'm just wondering, do we have like a life cycle of them, or we just get to a certain point and that's the next one on the list, or do we do some kind of testing to figure out which ones need replaced?
Thank you so much for the question. And this is one of those things I could talk for a long time. So let me tell you about every asset that we have, whether it's a roof, an HVAC, a boiler, a bus, is mapped and documented. And then as we go through, we work on that asset, and there is a file that's developed, right? So I'm going to take busing, for example. I can pull up a chart that's a running chart and tell you cost per kilometer of every bus out there. And if we have them running, if you have most of them at this rate, and you have one really high, that's the one we're going to focus on. Boilers, same thing. Roofing, same thing. So we spend a lot of time analyzing it. So we may have a boiler system that's 30 years old and it's still running very well. It may not be as efficient as that new system, but it's running well and working. We could have a 10-year-old system that's failing, costing us thousands of dollars every year just to keep it running, and that will be the one we identify. That'll be the one we work on, and you will see these change slightly because we'll never replace all of them. We try and get as much life as we can. As we make repairs, that will increase the life, say 5 years, and then we may look at a different one. So continually reviewing all of our assets, replacing those most required.
Thank you so much. That's such a good answer. You were prepared. Okay. All right, any other questions, trustees, or comments? All those in favor that the Board of Education of School District 33 approve the proposed minor capital programs of the 5-year capital plan as presented? Thank you, trustees. Unanimous again. All right, so now we're on to building envelope program. Does anyone have any questions before it goes on the table? Oh, can I get someone to make a motion, please? Trustee Bondar.
I'll move that the Board of Education of School District 33, in accordance with provisions under Section 142, Number 4 of the School Act, approve the proposed building envelope program in the 5-year capital plan 24-25 as provided on the 5-year capital plan summary outlined in the attached document.
Seconded by Trustee Westerby. Trustee Bondar, do you wish to say anything?
I will also just echo my colleagues' sentiments. It's an excellent report. I have so much faith in you guys. Thank you, Simone. Knowing that the team is excellent and this is great, so I don't have no idea what I could say that would make it any different. So thank you.
Excellent. So just to clarify, is the building envelope similar to what you just said about HVACs and buses and everything? Is it the same thing? You basically have a lifestyle and with a little cycle, and when it gets like you're putting more repairs in, then that's when we put them on the list.
Great question, and it's actually different. I know. This is my night. So the building envelope program is actually managed through BC Building Corporation. I'm going to say it's 10 plus years ago. BCBC went through all school districts and did evaluations of buildings, created a list of buildings. If you think about the leaky condo syndrome, that's what we're talking about. A lot of our buildings were fixed, so our buildings are not leaking. but they've been repaired. Now there's an opportunity to do a fulsome repair. If you had a chance to see East Chilliwack, that one was just completed. So we knew this list was sitting there. We went back to the ministry and said, hey, you know what, you have a list of buildings, we'd really like to participate and get this going. And then over the last 4 years, we've been doing them, right? So this is, we have no control on which ones they're doing. BCBC did that evaluation. So the same work has been done, but not by us. And then the ministry selects which one will happen, and that's what you're seeing happening. So it's good.
Excellent, thank you. We learned something tonight. That's excellent. Okay, so all those in favor that the board approve the building envelope plan as presented? Great, thank you very much. And now we're on to the last one. Does anyone have any questions about the school food infrastructure program before we put the motion on the table? Trustee Westerby.
Thank you. I just have a question about the food truck that moves food around. Could you just explain how that would be used through the chair? If staff could please.
All right, Secretary Judge.
So if I understand correctly, you're wondering how we'll use the truck? Yeah. So we do not have kitchen facilities in our school sufficient for every school to be producing food. So what's going to happen, and we're still sort of in the process of working all of this out, is food will be produced at a probably central off-site location, and then we'll have to deliver it to schools. And if it's hot meals, that would need to be the day of the service, which is why you see it's a refrigerated truck, because we need to make sure the food gets there at the right temperature. Good question.
Trustee Potter, are you wanting to say something?
I just had a point of curiosity. I think I know the answer, but I just thought I might ask about how that might change next year with the advent of the childcare services in schools, or is that not our purview in that case?
My understanding at the moment is that the food program, because this is brand new too, right? It's like a plethora of new things coming all at once. But the food program will be directed at K through 12. Yeah. That would be a good question though, right? For future years, maybe it'll expand it. At the moment, it's only targeted at a certain small subset of the school population as well.
All right, if someone could make a motion. There we go. Trustee Westerby.
I move that the Board of Education, School District Number 33 Chilliwack, in accordance with provisions under Section 142.4 of the School Act, approve the proposed school food infrastructure program and the 5-year capital plan for 2023-24 as provided on the 2023-24 5-year capital plan summary outlined in the attached document.
And seconded by Trustee Bondar. Trustee Westerby, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think this is great work, and I really appreciate everything that you've done. You made $250,000 go quite a long way, it seems. So hopefully this really alleviates some of the food infrastructure issues we're having. So thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'll speak in favor of it, but just a question or really a request through the chair to staff. At whatever point there's a Feeding Futures update brought to the board, from my perspective, it would be appreciated if there was some connection between that investment in the Feeding Futures program and its alignment with these capital priorities, either whether we're requesting them again next year or whether they've been funded and we're now realizing the potential of that program based on the plan reflected in this plan.
Thank you. Okay, trustees? Oh, sorry, Trustee Prusik, go ahead.
Just clarification. So is there going to be, with this whole food processes program, are all these schools going to be interconnected to the same program? So is there going to be some of the schools used for producing the food and some of the schools used for receiving it? Is there going to be like a logistical? Is there a logistical system already developed with this in mind?
I just press it and it works. Oh. It's a bit of a logistics need to be worked out at this point. So some schools will be producing food, not very many, and most of it will be produced off-site and brought to the schools. But we've got to map all that out. You know, we've got a program that's operating right now. It's serving approximately 1,000 students a day, but we're going to approximately triple that. So there's a bit of work to come.
So are we going to be using those partner groups that we're using now? So this will be tied in with them then? It'll be kind of a merging of the public and the private?
That's what we're working through right now, some of those details. Yeah.
All right, seeing no more questions, all those in favor that the Board of Education approve the proposed school food infrastructure program in the 5-year capital plan as presented? It's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Moving along. Look at us. Okay. Okay, so we're now moving on to policy renovation project, policies to be reaffirmed. So the first one is policy 433, provision of menstrual products. I just had a question to the Secretary Treasurer, who's our parliamentarian. This was basically tabled till this meeting. So do we go back to where we were at the last meeting?
I have to confess I didn't check, but I think we do, and I think we actually had an amendment on the floor at that time.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's where we were. We had an amendment on the floor that had been proposed by Trustee Westerby, and so the motion, Lanny, you'll have to go back and see. Well, moved and seconded last time, because I don't remember.
I think that's it up there.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just saying I don't remember who moved and seconded, so that.
Yeah.
So now, so we are back to, so the motion was on the table, the policy was before us, and then Trustee Westerby had made this amendment, which is in red, and then we moved to table it. And so think about it. So should have, but did not bring a list of who spoke last time. So we are gonna, no one did. Oh, no one did. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, excellent. I thought there was something. Okay. Okay, so we're back to anyone who wants to comment on the amendment. I think, did you even speak to your own amendment, or did it get tabled right away?
I believe I just.
I think you did.
The whole motion, the whole policy with the amendment. If the amendment fails, it would just be the policy as presented without the amendment. So just to clarify, I know it's weird to start in the middle of a process, but so right now we're just talking about the red words that are on the screen. Yes, does anyone want to speak to this? Trustee Reed.
Yes, so I'll speak in favor of the amendment. I believe that it's important that we spell this out because we are sort of on the forefront of a lot of these decisions. I think other districts will be looking to the leadership that we have here. And I supported the reasoning that Trustee Westerby raised. I do hear the concerns about vandalism being increased in, for example, male washrooms. But as we've heard from subject matter experts within the community, that vandalism does reduce as the scarcity mindset reduces and as it's destigmatized. And I've never been a fan of that argument for rainbow crosswalks, for public art murals, for anything. I don't think vandalism is ever a good reason to not do the right thing or to make a place more beautiful or more accessible. So that is why I would speak in favor of the amendment.
I believe that there's some new data that can be presented by the.
Oh, sorry, we did, maybe, Facilities Manager Van Hassel did present us a bit of information about the washrooms and some feedback from students and cost, etc. Would that be possible to present some of that information?
Just,
The student feedback, absolutely.
I think you're looking at. That's what.
Yeah.
I lost lost the track of the bouncing ball. So really quick.
Sorry, we did get a little bit of like feedback,
So
so
really
that's a
quickly-
good point. We should maybe have that before the public, because we did get a little bit of extra information since
Thank
last
you.
meeting.
Since the last public board meeting, both the assistant superintendents did an informal survey with 5 of the middle secondary schools. They were surveyed students in the JSA clubs to gain perspectives regarding providing no-cost menstrual products in male-only washrooms. So the survey was, should the school district supply barrier-free, no-cost menstruation products in male-only bathrooms? 75 out of 82 responses were in support of having menstrual products in male-only washrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bongo?
I would just say that in light of that information, I am in support of the amendment.
Trustee Swain?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question through the chair to staff. I'm not sure if it's our superintendent or director of facilities. I'm wondering if there's the ability to project what the current anticipated investment is in machines for the provision of menstrual products based on our current plans, and what the cost would be if new direction is provided in policy.
As we're thinking about that question, and is there clarity on what the new direction would be? Are we? I guess.
I think the conversation was around at least as a minimum 1 male washroom in every single school.
Thank you for the clarity. So if we were to do, as the superintendent mentioned, estimated at 17,000 increase for equipment in that. There was some good information brought forward this evening in questions around smaller units. We are using a larger unit. We have been reaching out to our suppliers, but unfortunately we haven't been successful in a smaller unit, but I will be reaching out to the people here that presented and see if that would make a difference. We would require more, so it may not make a big difference in the costing because I see that we would need more than 1 unit per, but I see the value in having more units as well. So that is a very rough estimate, but that would be our estimate is $15,000 to $17,000 for installation.
Trustee Prosser?
I would speak against this motion. I think the cost is high, and I think that we already have menstrual products available in other neutral washrooms. So I think that the addition to male washrooms in particular is not necessary. I think due to the cost of it and the fact that we do provide the product in a safe and an available manner for everyone, I think that needs to be kept in mind. So I would prefer just to keep it that way. I think it's just safer and it's a little easier and it's economically viable.
So I'm actually really happy that we tabled this and got a little bit more information, because last time I was a little bit hesitant just because I wasn't sure what students would think. And I wasn't sure if students would want to be accessing these products in the male washrooms. But given the fact we've done, informal survey, but it's still a survey that overwhelmingly said students do want these products available in the male washrooms, I will speak in favor of the amendment. Trustee Swain?
Thank you, Chair. Speaking in favor of the proposed amendment, I think first just appreciate the initiative taken to solicit feedback from students. I think it's important that their voices are heard in that, and in fact, it's embedded within the policy itself, both in its current iteration and the proposed iteration that we're considering this evening. In terms of the cost, I actually want to suggest that that's something we need to be communicating to the ministry. That's a mandate that came to us, and it's one that I think we're trying to honor. The premise of it was to address period poverty, and we're trying to fulfill that in a meaningful way. So I'll speak in favor of it with appreciation for the information that was brought that helped support kind of an informed discussion on the matter. Cheers.
Okay, not seeing any further hands. All those in favor of the amendment, which would add specifically in all variations of washrooms, male, female, gender neutral, to the proposed policy? Opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion, the amendment carries. So now we're on to the whole menstrual products policy. Does anyone have any comments about the policy in general?
Thank you, Chair. If I may, question through the chair to staff. I'm just looking for some ability to quantify what the cost has been overall to the district. It could be year to year what this costs. It could be our cost to date of installing dispensers and providing for materials. But just trying to understand what the funding was from the ministry initially versus what it has cost our district.
I have some information, so I just want to be able to speak to that. So when this started, the ministry supplied $6,430. With the work we've done thus far, our investment has been, including product, our investment has been close to $40,000 current, and that's and then that would be doing the work in high school, middle schools, elementary, and then adding the boys' washrooms would be the additional $17,000.
Trustee Spanky, you had a follow-up.
If I may, Chair. If I go back to the premise of the intention of this direction from the minister was to address period poverty, has there been consideration of having it in all district facilities, not just those that are serving students?
Currently, the focus has been on students and in schools and student washrooms.
I had one question. So currently, or originally, these were just installed in middle school and high school washrooms. Does some of the costs you're talking about tonight include the addition of elementary washrooms?
So when I mentioned we're at a number of 40,000, that would include high school, middle, and female washroom. And then as we move towards adding the boys, that would be the additional 17.
So the 40,000 included elementaries as well, which weren't originally.
For
yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to clarify that I'm not against menstrual products in the bathrooms. I want to make sure that everybody understands, but I will vote against this because of the changes to it. So I will say that I'm not against, but speaking against it, I'm not against what you're trying to do here. I think it's perfectly fine and normal. I just think I'm going to have to vote against it because of the expansion of it. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any further hands. So that being said, all those in favor of reaffirming policy 433 provision of menstrual products as presented and amended? Opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Trustee Swanky.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd like to propose a motion that arises from the previous matter. If I may put it on the floor, you may rule, of course, if it's in order.
Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Staff have it in hand if they could bring it up. If I may, I would move that the Board of Education send a letter to the Ministry of Education and Childcare and the Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity, communicating the cost pressures associated with addressing period poverty by providing menstrual products in schools and requesting support for boards in delivering these supports to students.
Yes, that is in order because it arises directly from the agenda item that was on the table. And does anyone want to second that? Trustee Bondar. Trustee Swanky, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Chair. My appreciation to our Director of Facilities and to staff this evening for the information they brought forward. I think it really clarifies what the initial investment was from the ministry in supporting this initiative and where it now stands. This is work that I believe is consensus at this table is important and that we want to follow through on. It also comes with a cost that I think would be worth communicating to the ministry, especially our local MLA, given their portfolio, to consider how they could further realize and support this work.
Thank you, Trustee Spanky. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Trustee Reed.
Yeah, I would just like to speak in favor of the motion. I do think it's important that we advocate, not just for ourselves, but raising this point will possibly raise it for school districts that maybe in further need, especially rural and rural and that word, sorry, districts. Thank you.
Trustee Wester.
Thank you. I'd just also like to speak in favor of the motion and
Sorry, hold on.
Sorry.
thank you, Trustee Swanky, for raising the really important point of the fact that to really deliver on the policy and the ministry order, we're going to need a lot more funding, especially given the fact that we also are addressing municipal property among staff as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. I also would like to speak in favor of the motion. I think it's important when we're asked to do things by the ministry that the ministry fund them. I think it's an important point to make. And I also appreciate that you've included the Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity, who obviously it directly affects that portfolio, but also as one of our local MLAs, I think it makes sense that then MLA Patton would be able to advocate knowing a bit more about our local situation. So thank you. All right. All those in favor that the Board of Education send a letter to the Ministry of Education and Childcare and the Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity, basically asking for more money to cover a period for menstrual products in school. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so policy. Oh, sorry. Would any trustees need a break at this time? Seeing no one, we'll carry on. Okay. Policy 5.2.2 is policy 520, public interest disclosure. Superintendent, can you explain this?
Thank you, Board Chair. So really quickly, I'll give some background. Back in the original act, the Public Interest Disclosure Act came into force on December 1st, 2019, and the PIDA comes into effect for school districts on December 1st, 2023. So two key dates for consideration. Why is PIDA important? Basically, its purpose is to provide a mechanism for current and former employees in the BC public sector to raise serious or systemic issues of wrongdoing without risk of retaliation. Organizations subject to PIDA must receive, investigate, and respond to wrongdoings reported under PIDA. PIDA is intended to encourage transparency, accountability, and ethical decision-making by creating a process for existing and former employees, including school trustees, to report serious wrongdoings within an organization. And then any past or present employee or trustee of a school district can make a complaint under PIDA, provided they were with the school district at the time the alleged wrongdoings occurred or at the time the wrongdoings were discovered. So we got a process. So realistically, the public school, BCPC, Public School Association, has been helping all single school districts with templates, policies, processes, procedures. So realistically, what has to get done would be that we need to make sure that the policy and procedures and forms are updated no later than November 30th, 2023 as a school district. We need to plan to provide employees with training by watching a training video as part of back to school orientation. That's a requirement. And then the next one will be a plan to be able to provide an annual report, basically within aligning the reporting period with the school year and completing the report within 6 months of the end of the reporting period. In other words, the first annual report will be in respect of the period December 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and should be completed by December 31st, 2024. Pretty extensive. Generally, just in a summary, all of the complaints come to me, but I have designated officers in the school district, and Assistant Director Rachel Green is the designated officer. They'll work with me on these particular pieces. So what you have in front of you today is a policy, and as well as the admin procedure, as well as the form. This information, the form processes, have been vetted by legal and are being used by all school districts. Thank you.
Trustee Spanky, are you putting your hand?
if I may start with a couple of questions here. First, my appreciation to staff for noting that this extends to trustees as well, noting points 2.3 and 5.1 as examples where it mentions trustees specifically. I did wonder about 4.1, which indicates the obligation to report, and I wasn't sure to whom is that report issued? Is it the board? Is it FIPA? Is it to the public? I was hoping for clarity on that. So this would be in the policy, section for reporting, 4.1, each year the superintendent shall prepare in accordance with the requirements of PETA and make available a report concerning any disclosures received, and it continues from there.
Assistant Director, do you know where the report goes to? It's under 4.1, reporting.
So from my understanding, the report needs to be provided to the Board of Education annually and then published publicly as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe the public version does need to be a redacted version. Yeah. Yeah.
Trustee Wanda?
Thank you. I just wanted to check in on the detail. You mentioned that all of these particular details have been vetted at a legal level for the entire province. When was that done, and is that some process that takes place in a similar, or takes a similar format to what we do with our procedures as they get changed and updated?
Thank you, Trustee Bonda. This actually came back, and I recall April 2021, and as recently as a couple of weeks ago, BCPC sent an updated version of instructions regarding the admin procedure that we had to go back and change. So it's ongoing, which is great, and again, it encompasses all 60 school districts.
Trustee Westerby, I think you had your hand going up.
Yes, I'm just wondering, there's a piece here that says this policy through the chair to staff. This policy applies to alleged wrongdoings related to the school district's operations or personnel. This policy does not displace other mechanisms set out in school district policy and so on. I'm just wondering if you could differentiate what this policy does and what the other mechanisms of school district policy and how to separate that.
Thank you, I was gonna ask the same question, you beat me to it.
Thank you, Trustee Westerby. I had a feeling a question around that would come up. So what this policy outlines is there's a very clear prescriptive definition of wrongdoing. So what this policy will do is provide a mechanism for employees to report in something that falls into that categories outlined as wrongdoing within the policy. However, what might also come in is something related to maybe misconduct of an employee that we need to follow our collective agreement language and process around for, misconduct. Or there might be something bullying and harassment that we might have to follow, like a respectful workplace, the WorkSafe BC regulations around the bullying and harassment investigation. So we'll have to take in those disclosures and kind of do an analysis to figure out, exactly what process we need to follow for each piece that's brought forward, so.
So no, a little bit. So I guess I was a little bit confused. We already have a bullying and harassment policy. So would they use this to go through that policy now? Like, is this the way you report all wrongdoing, or would you just look at the bullying and harassment policy and try to go through the procedure that's already in place for that? That's where I was a bit confused with this.
So we may find, depending on what the disclosure is, there might be a mix. Like we might get a disclosure of something that's really, some gross mismanagement that we would need to follow this policy to investigate. But we might have someone who decides to report something anonymously that's purely bullying and harassment. And that's where then I would advise them to say, actually, your concern is better addressed underneath this policy, review this, and I can help support you through that process. Yeah.
Trustee Swain.
Sorry, Trustee, just 1 second. Did you have a follow-up to your question?
I guess, sort of, it's just how does it work alongside a race? Would be my question. How does it work alongside the race reporting?
So ERACE is our student reporting. So disclosures need to, two different tracks. So students, this is for employees or former employees to report through. Yeah.
Trustee Swain.
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up to my question about 4.1 in the policy. It does not explicitly state reporting to the board and public disclosure. And so I'm wondering, it does say in accordance with requirements of PETA. So I'm wondering if PETA outlines that beautifully, then I'm satisfied the policy, meets the requirement. If not, if it's just understood that that's the intention going forward, please state that in policy.
Who wants to answer that?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the template sent by BCPC. I think we would have to be very clear in the policy by itself, as opposed to the admin procedure.
So I guess my question to staff, from your perspective, does the policy currently outline the obligation to report to the board and for the board to provide publicly a redacted version of complaints made? Because I'm not seeing that in the policy, but perhaps I'm missing it.
So what I'm seeing in BCPC's documentation is what's reflected in our policy. So I think we might have to take it away and look exactly what PETA specifies what we're reporting if we need to include that. Yeah.
If I may, Chair, and I'm happy to either support or make that motion, I did want the opportunity to just ask a couple of questions about the administrative procedures, and I wondered if other members had their own questions. So just asking that we take our time here.
Sorry, just to clarify, HR director. So are you saying that, or are both of you saying we should not pass this right now, or are you saying that we should, it's fine the way it is and we could tinker with it later? Like I'm unsure now, given the questions that were just raised where we're at. I got lost a little bit, sorry.
I'll just say this one way. I'm looking at the BCPC documentation, and again, this is sort of a replication of the documentation. You asked really the question, Trustee Frankie, around the reporting motion by itself. That is not reflected in the BCPC documentation. We'd have to take that away and inquire if that should be in a policy or in a procedure. I would rather that be in a policy than in a procedure, because that becomes part of the board's conduct structural pieces. Hope that makes sense.
So given that, should we be referring this to the next meeting?
Yeah.
So trustees, given all that, I think if you have more questions, we could ask a few questions, and then I think we should refer this back to staff, and then we can do it again in September once that's been clarified. So, trustees, Prosek?
Just on that point though, it does say and make available in accordance with requirements of the PETA and make available. And I think that and make available would be taken to mean the board.
If I may, Chair, to me it wasn't clear if it was the board, if it was the ombudsperson, if it was just a public report. Disclosure takes different forms in the district, and so seeing it undefined and knowing that these are new requirements, I was uncertain, and so I appreciate the reflections of the staff to maybe reflect on the questions you see.
It seems like it's a pretty important policy, so I think that should probably be articulated clearly. So I mean, it's possible we'll go away and PETA already lays it out, but.
Thank you. Just some clarity, and I just found the section under the duties of the head. It does say issuing an annual report to the public on the number of disclosures received under the Act, the outcomes of investigations, and any recommendations that are made. So there is some level of accountability to the public. It doesn't specify the board, but I would rather sort of take it back and inquire within the BCPC around the proper process.
If I
Thank you. Have a follow-up.
Not specifically to that, but I did have a couple of questions arising from the administrative procedures, if I may.
I have a question about the policy.
Please.
Sorry. Just gonna break up here. So I guess I'm just wondering, you mentioned that staff would get training every year on this, basically, and how it works. And I'm just wondering if that would be provided to trustees, because honestly, after reading this, I was not, I see myself mentioned as a person who could use this, and I'm not understanding how or in what case I would use this, because all of the things I can think of, I would probably raise them in a different way. So I'm not sure when I would use this, but I'm obviously mentioned and able to use it, so I would need that same training with staff.
So BCPC is in the process of making a video available to all 60 school districts. They should have that done in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be made available to all employees, including school trustees.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Swank, you had some questions about the administration.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the admin regulation, I did wonder if there was a gap in terms of defining the role of the board in the reporting and the investigation process. So if I look at 2.1.1, 2, 3, and 4, and also 7.0, it outlines sort of the person supervisor, the superintendent, the designated officer of the superintendent, and then the ombudsperson. So if the complaint was against the superintendent, as it does not go to the board. By my reading, it would go to the ombudsperson. If that's intentional, then that's fine. I was just hoping you could clarify if that was the case.
Thank you. That's a great question. That was a recent change made a couple of weeks ago by BCPC. Prior to that, the report went to the board chair.
If I may then, Chair, may I assume the same for Section 7 investigations? The intention would be for a complaint against the superintendent to go to the ombudsperson, not to the Board of Education?
That is correct.
Okay, trustees, I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, Trustee Singh. Okay, go ahead, Trustee Singh.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move to refer proposed policy 520 back to staff for consideration at a future meeting.
Secretary, Trustee Molitor, all those in favor of referring this back to staff for those questions? Oh, that's unanimous, thank you, trustees. Sorry, I just received a note that the sound is not working again. Should we take another recess?
Let's take 5 minutes.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and see if we can possibly fix the sound. Okay, trustees. And secretary treasurer. Okay, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Okay, so we've dealt with our two policies that were to be reaffirmed, one of which is referred, so we won't reaffirm that tonight. But now we're moving on to policies to be repealed, which is 5.3. So we're going to go, hopefully, I think we'll be able to go through a lot of these pretty quickly, but we'll do them one at a time just because it makes it easier to have discussion. So each one I will throw to the superintendent briefly for him to give a little bit of rationale for why it's on the doc to repeal, and then we can quickly, hopefully, just speed through these. I'm excited. Okay. So 5.3.1 is Board Regulation 300.2, School Administrative Entitlements.
Thank you, Board Chair. So really quickly, just want to give the public some information. We'll probably have several policies for the next meeting in September and also for the final meeting in October. It should probably be sufficient time for us to complete all the policies and the admin procedures. And so today's first policy to be repealed is Board Regulation 300.2, School Administrative Entitlements. So I'm just going to make this generally, entitlements or school admin or staffing entitlements are basically an internal document. They're not on a public policy site. The board doesn't deal with staffing allotments by itself. They actually manage the budgetary process through the school superintendent. This, along with the rest of our staffing allotments from our regulations, are actually internal documents now on SharePoint. They look the same, but they are there for consideration. So a recommendation is for repeal.
I guess I had a question. So this was a board regulation, so I'm assuming at some point the board looks like it was back in 1992 looked at this and approved it. So now it would be moved out of the board's hands basically into operations. But I'm just wondering, does that mean it could get changed at any time without the board technically even knowing about it? Like there were some guidelines for administrative entitlements, and now it's going to go away onto the SharePoint site or whatever. Could you, if you wanted to, just go, no, it's different numbers, or would you have to bring it back to the board? That's my question.
That's an excellent question. So first of all, whenever we do admin procedures regulations, we take a lot of information into consideration. So exactly right now, looking at this admin procedure that was last updated back in 2010, we actually staff and offset schools differently based on needs, based on a plethora of data. So realistically, I declare it collectively, but at the end of the day, we're going to be looking at admin allocations to the budget process. So the board's always going to know exactly how many admin we've allocated to our schools in our system. Hope that helps.
I guess so, to follow up. So I know most of our elementary schools, for example, have more administrators than is. Sorry, not necessarily more admin times. I know administrators, like there are administrators, but they often teach or whatever as well. But I don't think there's very many schools in our district that don't have there are a couple, but a lot of the elementary schools have a principal and a vice principal. But it looks like from the numbers, almost none of them would be entitled just strictly on these numbers to a full-time administrator. So I'm just wondering, are we already exceeding these by a fair amount in most of our schools anyway?
So what we've done the last many years, we have to look at admin allocations at the elementary, and I think we've changed some of the allocations based on the needs. And I know that during the previous iteration of the school superintendent, we actually made a consideration of looking at elementary admin allocation staffing to ensure we can actually make a difference in our school classrooms. So you're right, this has changed since this was put in place collectively. Just want to let you know, at the end of the day, these actually are sitting on a SharePoint site. They can also pretty much sit as an admin procedure to inform our school administrators. If that gives reassurance, that also works by itself. This should not be a part of a policy.
Okay, does anyone have any questions before we put this motion on the table for discussion? Trustee Smarky?
Yeah, I do, and it may just be to confirm my understanding. First, I'm correct that we're moving away from an administration allocation being ratio-based. Is that correct?
They still will be ratio based, but we take a lot of other factors into consideration, like the social services index. And so that changes, but we will try and adhere to that, as well as reflect the needs across the system. So this is just a basic guideline for us.
And then, if I may, Chair, furthermore, the opportunity for input from the board or from a member of the community partner group would be through the budgetary process. Am I correct in that understanding?
That is correct, because when the SC does walk us through the budget considerations, there's a very clear indication of the number of admin officers that have been hired for a school district.
So I guess my question would be, this will be, there will be a guiding document, it'll be on our internal database, non-public facing, for a member of, say, that committee, to understand what are the considerations that inform administrative allocations. Where would they find that information, or how would that information be available to them? Because they can't see the document, but they are obligated to engage in the budget process. They have a desire to engage in that process, and they're not necessarily aware of all the considerations that have informed the recommendation presented by the superintendent and secretary treasurer in the budget process.
That's a great question. And so generally, I think to be able to reflect upon that, that could actually be part of admin procedure manual. Externally, that really helps. I think you're referring to a partner group being able to reflect upon the admin ratios and to be able to ask questions from the budgetary process. If that's the case, this also can be. The main thing is it should not be part of the admin, the policy manual, mainly because of the fact that it actually deviated from this by itself, and it makes it so much more easier for us to work with it as an admin procedure.
So could I just clarify? Okay, so basically having this as a policy, the way it is, that's how many administrators we're supposed to have. But you're not following this. In most cases, there's more administrators than this in a lot of our schools, correct? So it actually makes it weird to have it in policy, and then you're technically deviating from policy by providing more services.
Correct.
Then I guess yeah, so if it was an admin regulation instead, or an admin procedure, that it would be more public, and could that be done, I guess?
It can be done. So realistically, we actually have a copy. We've actually gone from full-time equivalency to headcount, which is the correct amount. It's actually there right now. And I think if I'm hearing the question correctly, the consideration maybe is if partners want to inquire about basic admin allocation at our schools, so they can speak through the budget process, it would be more beneficial to have this as part of the admin procedure. If that's the case, that's not a problem.
Just to summarize my understanding of this, should we repeal this policy, what you'll be basing the administrative entitlements on going forward is a mixture of budget and need? Is that correct?
Headcount and need.
So a couple of things. Headcounts, there's always a basic allocation that you actually look at, as well as multiple other data sources such as the social services index, the needs across the system. Then what happens is we take the allocation mainly at elementary schools, especially some of the schools, we might actually add time as we see fit based on the budget allocations. And then those numbers are reported through the budget consideration pieces.
So, sorry, I got so many questions. Okay, so those basic headcount things, so is that something our district set, or is there a standard, like from recommendation from BCPC or something, where like the baseline is?
That's a great question. Look, this belongs to Chilliwack School District, but I know Dr. Sankta has done a bit of a quick scan across the system. Most districts are pretty similar. I think you want to.
So, you have the School Act giving some parameters for teachers. You have our contract also providing some parameters, under the revised language and so forth. So that's teachers. There's no such thing on the admin side. So districts and they weren't in policy. We actually had to contact individual school districts in most cases. Were you involved in that too? No. We contacted a bunch of school districts, and you know, it's like we're all sort of heading down the same track, but the ratios are all different. You know, you get to a high school over 1,000 and you've got one principal, maybe one or two assistant or vice principals. But I just want to say, there wasn't a consistent pattern. It's very unique. Yeah.
Does anyone want to put this motion on the table so we can actually maybe debate repealing this instead of I motion that the Board of Education repeal Board Regulation 300.2, School Administrative Independence. Do I have a seconder for that? Trustee Swanky. Trustee Masterby, do you want to speak to the motion? It makes sense to me that this is not reflective of the reality of how we need to allocate administrative entitlements. So I understand that it's a flexible need, and I appreciate that, equity based, that people get what they need. So I can understand that. So I think I would vote or I would speak in favor of the repeal.
Sure, thank you, Chair. I'll speak in favor of repeal. I do appreciate that there may be concern that the repeal of the policy as it currently stands may lead a school to feel that they're not receiving that allocation to support their proper function. And given that we haven't been in compliance, given that board regulation isn't even really a thin thing within the context of our current policy book, I think it's important that we move past this. I also think it's really important that we're mindful of being receptive to feedback if there are concerns about allocations being out of step with the need in a school community. And I want to also be mindful, thinking about the role of the budget committee and the budgetary process, that the considerations are articulated in a manner where members of the community understand those considerations and have the opportunity to provide feedback on them. So I'll speak in favor of it, but I really think it will be important to fulfill the promise of this direction based on how the budgetary process rolls out in the years ahead.
I came in tonight unsure about this one, just because I did have obviously a lot of questions. But I think some of those have been satisfied by the idea of putting it as an amendment procedure that is public facing. I think that's really important. And then I guess what was the other? Oh, my other thing is, Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent, you might be very shocked to hear this from me, but I need more specifics in the budget so that I know whether we're spending our budget properly. I still am not able to understand when I look at the budget how many of those administrators were like, we have to have them, how many were like extra time we've given. So once I have that, I will be much more confident about the whole system and also this admin procedure. So just, I know I say it all the time, but for next year, I'm really hopeful that we're going to get a different type of budgeting.
Yes, you have lots of transparency towards that, lots of clarity in the budget process.
Thank you so much. All right, does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Okay, seeing no one, all those in favor that the Board of Education repeal Board Regulation 300.2 School Administrative Entitlements. That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay. 5.3.2 is Policy 400 District Code of Conduct. This is another motion to repeal.
Assistant Director Richard Wayne for this one.
Hello. So as a result of the policy review that we have undertaken with the Human Resources Policies, we are recommending for repeal Policy 400 District Code of Conduct, as it has been made redundant by updated Administrative Procedure 510 Standards of Conduct for Staff. So our thinking is that the expectations for staff do fall under the operations of the district, so it would be better served as an administrative procedure. We could argue that it could be made an internal document, but we do feel it is still important for it to be a public-facing document to ensure transparency and visibility on the expectations for staff within public education. So we have reviewed and revised the administrative procedure, and we are ensuring more clarity around our expectations of staff within that procedure. We've also ensured that there's alignment with our district's core values within the procedure, which we're quite pleased with. The other piece around this, as Superintendent Pregasam had mentioned, our administrative procedures are green documents. So this gives us the flexibility as different things evolve within the employment landscape to be able to make amendments to ensure that we are clearly sharing our expectations for staff code of conduct. So recommendation would be to repeal the policy.
Thank you. Any questions before the motion on the table? Trustee.
Thank you. Just through to the staff. I'm just curious about, you said it's a green document, do changes come back through the board as well, or how would we be notified of updates to this procedure?
I can probably provide some context because this now becomes a living procedure. I'm thinking that if we do make any changes and it goes through with our PVP group, we also provide copies of the updates to the members of the Board of Education as part of the communication process. If that makes sense.
How would the upper group be able to provide additional feedback for building up on this?
I believe that was referenced by Superintendent Pregasam to email the board email, providing any feedback. And that feedback would be forwarded to us.
Board at sd33.bc.ca.
I think I want to provide some clarity because I think the DPAC chair did ask the question. I want to make really sure. So these policies, generally when we do craft admin procedures, we include staff, we vet them through a staffing process, then they go on a public website, but they're actually green documentation. And so the next steps will be any providing groups want to provide additional feedback, the Board of Education, that is ongoing. I think we want to be open as an organization to garner feedback, to ensure that our admin procedures are in good standing, that they can actually implement them with stewardship across the system. And so the same thing comes to the cycle of admin procedures. My thinking would be is that when we make any changes, we send them to a PVP group, it comes right back to us. Before they are updated on our public site, we'll send a copy to the members of the Board of Education as for information, even though they are admin procedures, to garner feedback, as well as post it back on the public site. And I think that's an ongoing feedback process. So there's no timeline, and it should be continuous.
So I just wanted to clarify, not so much, I think the admin procedure for this looks really good to me, but I'm just wondering, say, we have done a fair amount of getting rid of policies but keeping admin procedures throughout the last little bit. And so I'm just wondering, as a board, if suddenly we were like, you know what, we're seeing and hearing things that are making us uncomfortable, we feel like this administrative procedure is no longer cutting it or whatever, at that point, I guess we could add a policy back in. We could say we believe now there's a need for a policy because we're seeing a gap or whatever.
That's a great question. Part of your responsibility as governance is to look at the gaps in our system, connect to a strap line. If there's a need that's not being addressed through an admin procedure, then it's upon the Board of Education to request or to be able to ask staff to come up with a policy. And there's a possibility the admin procedure becomes a policy with some level of accountability measures if that hasn't been the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Does someone want to make this motion? Trustee? No, sorry, I thought you had your finger on your button. Who else to make? Trustee Bonner.
I will move that the Board of Education repeal policy 400, district code of conduct.
Seconded by Trustee Westerby. Trustee Bonner, do you want to speak to the motion?
I greatly appreciated, I want to say Trustee Green, but Director Green's explanation, and I like it when things make sense and when things are not redundant. So thank you. That's it.
Trustee Westerby.
Yeah, I believe a lot of this is also covered under the safe schools policy and inclusion policy that was passed. So it really is really redundant in a lot of different ways. So I appreciate the removal of redundant policies.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands up, all those in favor of the Board of Education repeal policy 400, district code of conduct? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, 5.3.3 is policy 403, police information check volunteers. Superintendent?
Back to Assistant Director Rachel Green.
Back to me again. So we, again, through our policy review, have determined that policy 403, police information check volunteers, has been recommended for repeal as it has been made redundant by updated administrative procedure 405. So upon review, we recognize this is more of a process and it would be better served as an administrative procedure. And we did include in the administrative procedure some pieces from the policy statement, as we did feel that that was still useful language.
Thank you. I did notice that in part of the administrative procedure, there was no real advice to give on what happens when the check results in something not so clear, or whatever that might look like. I just find that that's completely lacking. I wonder if you could speak to that, our staff could please speak to that, what that might look like and how to clarify that for the actual staff working on this procedure.
Yes, so this process is administered out of Human Resources by our executive assistant. And so when we do have a police information check that does not come back clear, we do notify the person that they are not able to volunteer within the school based on what the results of that denial include.
Just to clarify, if there's any results at all, it's a flat denial and that's communicated?
We do have to assess based on what comes back on that police information check, so it's not an automatic denial. It is discussion based on around the protocols of what we can and can't accept.
And just one more follow-up. And then that protocol is not part of here, but it's part of HR.
It's actually part of through the RCMP and the police information check process. Yeah, with them.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion? Trustee Reed.
That I move that the Board of Education repeal policy 403, police information check volunteers. I'm quite satisfied with the background and information given by staff, and I appreciate the thought that goes into it, and I think that it's sensible to repeal it.
Seeing no further comments, all those in favor that the Board of Education repeal policy 403, police information check volunteers. That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, moving on to 5.3.4, policy 416, exchange teaching. Who's this? Oh, this is also HR, okay.
This will be the last you hear from me for a little while. So again, we are recommending that based on our analysis, policy 416, exchange teaching has no currency, as it's covered by the local collective agreement. We do administer under our G29 leave of absence provision. We allow for teacher exchange. As well, the policy manual review, corporate principal provides guidance that the board does not duplicate information, and this information already is present in the School Act regulations and orders in council, and School Act ministerial orders, Ministry of Education and Childcare, and Government of BC. So the recommendation would be that we repeal this policy.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone would like to make a motion? Trustee Bond?
It is 416, yeah?
Yeah.
I will move that the Board of Education repeal policy 416, exchange teaching.
Second.
With no further comment. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing that none, all those in favor that the Board of Education repeal policy 416, exchange teaching? Opposed? No, I think that was unanimous. Sorry, I was looking away. All right, so now we're moving on to policy 422, smoke and tobacco and e-cigarette vapor-free environment.
I'm sorry, I lied. One more. So this is policy 422. Smoke, tobacco, and e-cigarette vapor-free environments is recommended for repeal as it has been made redundant by our updated administrative procedure 410. So the new administrative procedure that we've created outlines those health and safety expectations sufficiently.
I will move that the Board of Education repeal policy 422, smoke, tobacco, and e-cigarette vapor-free environments. With no further
Seconded
comment.
by trustee Swanky. That's unanimous, thank you trustees. Okay, we're on to 5.3.6, which is policy 424, child abuse and neglect. Who's introducing this one, Superintendent?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of a block there. So, let me just bring up my policy. So just want to let you know, I had a couple of questions that have been sent my way by members of our partner groups. And then upon further reflection, there's been some great questions in regards to the admin procedure. I am going to recommend that as an amendment to the motion to refer policy 524.
Oh, sorry, we're not on this one.
Sorry.
We're on 424.
Are we on 424?
Yeah. So you're skipping way ahead, I know what you're talking about, that's all right.
Sorry, last. 421. Child abuse. Oh, my apologies. Thank you. All right. I've skipped ahead. 424, child abuse and neglect. So as you can see, existing policy is pretty archaic. It has been updated extensively. We use language from the Child, Family, and Community Services Act. And as you can see, the admin procedure is pretty extensive compared to the policy that was in last updated back in 2011.
Are there any questions about this policy? Trustee West.
Thank you. So if I'm clear, it is simply the administrative procedure that has made this redundant. There's no other ministerial orders or anything from the ministry that would otherwise make this redundant?
Thank you. All the required documentation is now in the admin procedure. If you go back and look at the policy, it had not been updated for many, many years, and so that's become redundant by nature.
Just to clarify Trustee Westerby's question, though, some of this is in provincial law. Like it is like requirement like for any adult who knows about abuse to report it, right?
Part of this is also from the Child, Family, and Community Services Act.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question regarding the administrative procedures supporting this process provided repeal takes place. I'm wondering if any of our LEAs contain within them obligations to include as part of the reporting and communication process. And if so, is there any part of those LEAs that, or sorry, has there been any consideration of that within the admin regulations? I'm not aware of any, I'm just wondering within it. As we're returning autonomy and determination to those communities. This talks about reporting to MCFD. Is there any obligation to report to that nation?
Trustee Sankey, not to my knowledge, within our existing LEAs.
And thank you for the question. I don't believe there's anything in the LEAs, other than we do report to HACME if it is a First Nations incident. Yeah.
Trustees.
Thank you, Chair. I would be prepared to move that the Board of Education repeal follows policy 424, child abuse and neglect.
Seconded by Trustee.
Thank you. I do believe that an administrative regulation is better positioned to provide operational direction that supports the appropriate channels within the defined legal framework. I would recommend staff, there was acknowledgement of aligning obligations with rights holders to the appropriate channels. So as long as those obligations are being upheld, I think this looks great.
Seeing no further comments, all those in favor of repealing policy 424, child abuse and neglect? That's unanimous, thank you trustees. Okay, on to 5.3.7, which is policy 430, staffing allocation.
Thank you, Board Chair. Just looking through this staffing allocation by itself, this policy really has no currency. It is a pretty feel-good statement of core beliefs.
All right, would someone like to make the motion? Trustee Reed.
I move that the Board of Education repeal policy 430, staffing allocations.
Seconder? Trustee Bongar, thank you. Trustee Reed, do you want to speak?
No further comment.
All those in favor of repeal, that the Board of Education repeal policy 430 staffing allocations? It's unanimous, thank you trustees. Okay, 5.3.8 is policy 508, distance learning ordinarily resident.
Thank you, Co-Chair, that's myself. And so this policy was in place a long time ago when our distance learning school basically served the population across the province of BC, as well as when we used to have student athletes that left Chilliwack to go play in another province, and they were supported by a distance learning school. And if you look at the policy, it refers to athletes and talks about ordinary residents. What I did was just to be able to provide to look at an extensive admin procedure that actually covers all of the aspects of residency when it comes to in Chilliwack School District. But this policy is redundant, it's not required anymore. Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Move that the Board of Education repeal policy 508, distance learning ordinarily resident.
Seconded by trustee Whitman. Do you wish to speak?
It seems as though it's been made redundant.
All those in favor that the Board of Education repeal policy 508, distance learning ordinarily resident? That's unanimous, thank you trustees. Okay, 5.3.9, policy 513, student safety equipment. Superintendent?
Thank you. Another great policy where it just talks about the responsibility of school staff. School regulation 26589 stipulates the responsibility of school principal and teachers in making sure safety is taken into consideration when it comes to supervision.
Someone like to make a motion? Trustee Reed.
I move that Board of Education repeal policy 513, student safety equipment.
Trustee Westerby. Trustee Reed, would you like to speak at all?
Well, I think we all like to feel good, but we don't like redundant policies, so I agree with the direction from staff.
Thank you. All those in favor that the Board of Education repeal policy 513, student safety equipment? That's unanimous, thank you trustees. Policy 5.3.10 is policy 524, physical restraint and seclusion of students in school settings. Superintendent.
Thank you. This was the policy I was referring to previous to this. So I actually had a couple of great questions from one of our partner groups this past weekend and again recently. And I think based on those great questions, I'm going to make the recommendation. I'm going to make an amendment to the motion to be able to refer policy 524 and then obviously the associated admin procedures to basically to the advisory committee of inclusive education for review and reference back to the Board of Education.
May I read it all?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, Chair. I would move that the Board of Education directs the Superintendent garner feedback from the Inclusive Education Advisory Committee on Policy 524 and Administrative Procedure 427.
Sorry, just before that, we got a seconder, it's advisory committee on inclusive education, we changed the name a little while. So it should just be in the minutes properly, advisory committee on inclusive education, it's ADC now. So with that minor thing, who wants to second that motion? Trustee Bondar, thank you. Trustee Spanky?
Thank you, Chair. I think there was rationale provided by our superintendent. I will note that this previously was subject to the purview of the Education Policy Advisory Committee. So I think there's value if we're not aligning it with the mandate of EPAC to solicit and garner some feedback to inform the implementation of this policy or administrative regulation going forward.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion to refer this to AC?
So will we be, will we be referring to our partner groups to clarify some of these things, because they have some concerns?
So there's represented a small partner groups on the advisory committee for inclusive education, and then it's a policy that a committee of the board that specifically looks at inclusive education, which this sort of falls under, so that's the recommendation of why this ended there. Trustee West?
I'd just like to speak in favor of of getting advice from our partner groups. I know that this is a really important piece of policy, and as the commenters have pointed out, so I appreciate this change, and I speak in favor of it. So.
I also will speak in favor of referral, and also I just want to take this opportunity to thank partner groups for when they do provide us with feedback in advance of the meetings. I know that the previous repeal tonight that did go through, but that we asked lots of questions that were motivated by feedback from partner groups, and this one as well, because of the feedback that we're getting from partner groups, it does inform the board's decision making. So we do appreciate when we get that. It does allow us to have a little bit of extra time to think as well. So obviously we won't always necessarily do what the partner groups have said, but it allows us to really take those things into account. So thank you very much to partner groups that did that. All those in favor that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to garner feedback from the Advisory Committee on Inclusive Education on Policy 524 and Administrative Procedure 427. Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay. 5.3.11 is Policy 533, Maintenance of Order, and Policy 717, Trespassing. So this is two different ones.
Thank you, Board Chair. So back in May of 2016, the Ministry of Education at the time issued provincial guidelines around the maintenance of order, Section 177, and asked direct the school district to review their existing policies and admin procedures. Given the large number of policies we had, we went ahead and created a second policy, accidentally. And so we now come to the resolution that both these policies need to be repealed because it is embedded within the School Act. Thank you.
Someone like to make a motion? Let's do it.
I make a motion that the Board of Education repeal Policy 523, Maintenance of Order, and Policy 717, Trespassing.
Thank you. Second by Trustee Bonner.
As pointed out, they are both very redundant, and we like it clean.
All those in favor of the Board of Education repeal Policy 533 and Policy 717? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, Policy 608, Assistant Dog. So this is 5.3.12. Policy 608, Assistant Dog. Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Superintendent. So I would like to speak, if possible, to both 608 and 610 because they're combined and they kind of created some difficulties. So the reason to repeal both those policies is because one really dealt with a situation where support animal was brought in to support a specific student, and there's language around requirements in the IEP. The other one, 610, spoke to the need for pets in a classroom. So that could be anything from pet fish to an animal coming in for a period of time. The gap that exists is that there is some times where a staff member can bring in particularly a certified dog for purposes beyond that. So it's not connected to an individual student, and it's not a pet that's coming in. So what we have in our procedure 430 is clearly outlined how we can have that exist as well. So if you look at the language, there's a language around staff assistant dogs. So those are certified animals that are brought in for the purposes of learning for the general classroom. It can be to support in a classroom. And that was the gap, and we've seen it come forward in a number of ways where there's needs that exist, and we didn't have language to support that. So in that way, rather than having these two policies, having a procedure that really meets the needs of the full range of where a particular student, because of a medical condition or medical diagnoses, is requiring assistance dogs, to having an assistance dog in the classroom to support the whole class learning, and right through the range of having a pet coming in for instructional purposes. That's met with that new procedure. So that's the rationale for the repeal for both 608 and 610.
Given that, would someone like to make a motion to repeal both so we can do it them together?
I'm just wondering if perhaps the superintendent could speak to, if we remove 610 specifically, I just want to make sure that the administrative procedures have
a policy or something to back up the support of having animals in schools, if we need that at all, or if just having an administrative procedure is sufficient in covering that ability to do it?
So in procedures 430, it clearly outlines all the different scenarios in which you can have animals and the requirements for certification for those animals. So I think it covers it in a more comprehensive way than those two existing policies.
Trustee Swanky?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Board of Education repeal policy 608 assistance dogs and policy 610 pets animals in the classroom.
Second, trustee Blondar. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing to add to the information already provided.
I just have one question about the administrative procedure for the assistance dogs one. There's one of the bullets about when it might not be allowed to have an assistance dog. One of them was solicits unwanted attention, and I was just wondering if anyone could speak to that. Like what does that mean? Sorry, I just found it and then I went out.
I think that's referencing an animal that would distract from what's happening. It's still for the purposes of supporting learning and supporting students in that. If an animal was in there and was not able to manage that, I think that's what we'd be speaking to.
Yeah, it was just that one line struck me. I found it now. So it's solicits unwanted attention toward any member of the student body or school personnel. What does that mean? Like it's a strange line. Like the dog is soliciting attention, and the dog's like, check out the student, or check out the. It's so weird.
I can speak from my perspective. Yeah, I was thinking about my, so the minute I walk home, I've got a border collie, and it's ready to lick me, and I think it's that type of attention that, I think the dogs that are trained are able to manage that really well, and if there was any concerns, that would be.
That's fine, but my recommendation would be to rewrite that sentence in a way that says that, because solicits is a strange way to put that, so I'm fine. I think that would be pretty easy for you all to find a different phrase for that, but now that I understand it, that does make sense.
To my colleagues' point, I think it serves as a reminder that plain language is always beneficial when we're thinking about whether policies or administrative procedures. So appreciate it, Mariah.
All right. All those in favor of repealing policy 608 assistant dogs and policy 610 pet animals in the classroom? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. And we're on to the last one. 5.3.14, policy 702, first aid.
So we are recommending that policy 702 first aid be repealed because it is redundant. All the requirements in the policy are outlined within occupational health and safety regulation, as well as we have a very robust district internal health and safety program that outlines all of the documentation and requirements for first aid.
All right, trustees, would someone like to make a motion? Trustee Wester.
I move that the Board of Education repeal policy 702 first aid.
Trustee Reed seconds. Trustee Wester.
I trust that everything we have is outlined in the occupational health and first safety.
All those in favor that the Board of Education repeal policy 702 first aid? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Oh, we got through so much work tonight. Okay, meeting summaries are in package. It's now time for public participation, comments or questions concerning the agenda, same rules I outlined earlier. Push button, say your name and your relation to the district.
Thank you. My name is Judy Lewis and I am a long-time resident of Chilliwack. I'm just trying to find, lost my page here. I'll try and do it from memory. The policy on menstrual products Well, let me back up first. When I got here at the meeting, I downloaded the agenda from online, the website. But it was not the same as the one that was presented up on the screen for the menstrual products, and I wonder why that was, what happened as to why the agenda changed from when I downloaded it to what I saw.
What happened was that the original motion did not include the red letters that were on the screen, but the original motion was presented at the last meeting. The amendment was made, and then a motion was made to refer it to this meeting so that we could have additional information and the trustees could have time to think about it.
So the one that you showed on the screen was the one from the previous meeting?
Well, it was the exact thing you saw, but the red letters only were an addition and were an amendment.
So that's why it wasn't the same as the downloaded one from tonight's agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, okay, the other comment that I was looking over the reporting of sexual abuse, and I know that was repealed, but it's in existence in our province. But as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about how when an individual experiences trauma, that trauma is acknowledged to be real trauma, even if one of us may not think it's real trauma. I wonder how that falls in line with sexual exploitation. If there's some kids that may think they're being sexually exploited, but someone else thinks that they're not, that comes into play. And then I'm thinking about that in line of materials in the school that could be determined sexually exploited to one student but not to another. And where is the line drawn between sexual material being educational or being exploitation if a child perceives it that way? I know I'm getting very heady and psychological, but that's how my mind works.
So, Superintendent, do you want to speak to any of that? Essentially, I don't want to put words into Judy's mouth. I believe she's saying, though, that there's some sexual materials in school that traumatize children.
So I think if I understood that question correctly, at the end of the day, as a parent, guardian, caregiver, if there's any consideration regarding a resource in our schools, that the parent may think that's going to have a negative impact on their student, there is a process to be able to review that learning resource. I hope I answered the question.
Trustee Proce, do you have a question?
You have a comment?
Well, normally it's the chair answers. If you have a question, please do the chair. Oh, yeah, if you wanted to, if you thought you had more
Just to
information.
clarify, I think what maybe you misunderstood is that when we repealed the policy of the sexual policy of abuse or whatever that was, that did not mean that that was because we have it included in the administrative. It's written better in the administrative section. So it's not that we took it away from the school, we actually have it it's actually more rock solid now than it was before. So I just want to clarify that it wasn't that we took something away.
I understand that it wasn't taken away. I'm just thinking that the way we define trauma is individualized by the person experiencing the trauma. So the way maybe the way that we view sexual exploitation also can be defined by the person experiencing it as well. So if a child says, hey, I'm being sexually exploited or sexually harassed in the bathroom or whatever else, that we accept that at face value and not try to say, oh, that's negligible, that doesn't really matter, that doesn't qualify. That's kind of what I'm thinking along those lines. Oops, I don't necessarily think that there's a real clear answer. So really my question probably doesn't have an answer.
Thank you.
I understood that we're going to spend $40,000 this year to put.
Could you say your name and then?
Oh, my name's Linda Diarmo. And that we're going to spend $40,000 on machines for menstrual products this year. So does that include the menstrual products themselves? And if it does, like what kind of does it cost yearly to provide menstrual products for the schools.
Yes,
So yes, the number that I gave, the 40, does include the product. We're estimating the product at $5,000 annually with that $40,000 investment in equipment. And then that does include, so 35,000 equipment, 5,000, yes. Okay.
thanks for the clarification. Okay, press the right hand button, so your name and your relation to the district.
So my name is Janie and I have kids who attend, and this weekend I took my girls to some education about menstrual products, and I was shocked. I have one kid who attends high school at Night High who informed me that for at least 2 weeks, none have been provided to her. Well, to the school, I guess, more so. And my other daughter who attends 80 Rundle, where she has to go to the office. Now she's confident. She's totally like, don't care, it doesn't matter to me. But I know that there are students that it matters to. So if she has to go to the office, that tells me that 80 Rundle provides nothing in bathrooms. And I'm not 100% sure. Like my daughter who attends Night High only went to one bathroom because even for herself, she was like, oh wow, Mom. And I was like the same. I was like, oh wow. So I just like, it's only two. And actually, so her friend came who goes to CSS. And she said in this education that teachers don't allow them to take their breaks. So she didn't really, her friend didn't mention what was in the bathroom per se, or I can't remember, but she has said, and she has quite a, anyway, and so she really requires sometimes to take her break, and she's been told several times by many of her teachers, no, you can't take your break. Because apparently, and according to my daughter's friend, that they think that they're gonna leave. Now, maybe, I don't know, but I was shocked, to be quite honest with you, that like one school, like for at least 2 weeks, my daughter's like there hasn't been any, and my other daughter has to go to the office, and a young lady from another school is not allowed to take her bag when she's required. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much for raising that. We are aware that there are some challenges with the ongoing provision of menstrual products. Because there was some vandalism, some schools had moved away from having them in the bathrooms. The expectation is that they start putting them back in the bathrooms. Just so you know, we have already heard that feedback. I don't know, I can't speak to what's happened very recently. If they were there, I don't know what's happened to them. Superintendent, you might be able to speak more to that. And I did just want to say thank you for the comment about the bags. I think some teachers might really not be aware of that. But if you don't allow students to take a bag and also there's no products, the compounding of those two issues are definitely something I hadn't considered. That would be definitely a problem.
Thanks for feedback, and I've actually heard about that from another school. We are going to make a commitment, and I can't answer the specific, but we will make sure that through our maintenance department as well as through assistant school superintendents at schools will have a barrier-free menstruation products in their washrooms. And so that shouldn't come up, and I know that this has been a bit of a challenge. Can't make an excuse for vandalism. I think our collective obligation is, regardless of vandalism, to make sure that the products are available at all times.
Yeah, you can do a follow-up since you have. Yeah.
One of the things, like my girls were really open at this education thing, and I was like really surprised because they didn't want to go at all. And they just said like they believe over time, like initially it may be a lot, but over time, like it's gonna wear off, like the novelty will wear off. But that it's also like, I'm not saying we need to provide them with like luxurious ones, but like, I mean, my daughter was like, this is like a cardboard ancient thing, like that you expect me to, and then I'll just leave it at that. And then a pad that's mom this thick, like that I'm supposed to walk around the rest of my day with. And I just said, okay, I will I will say something for you.
Thank you so much. I'm just because you did already speak 2 minutes, trying to be fair to everyone, but thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Just since I have the opportunity, I think it is, the board really, as you heard in our discussion tonight, really supports the provision of menstrual barrier menstrual products. The province also supports that. That is the expectation. We want to have that. I would encourage parents who happen to be watching this to talk to your children about vandalism in schools, because if we want to have this available and we want that to be an ongoing thing, it is a bit of a problem if people are sticking tampons in slats in the walls and flashing pads down the toilet. So if we can all work together, all of us, students, parents, the board, everybody, to make this just things in bathrooms, just like toilet paper, we don't waste it, we just use what we need, and then we carry on. That's where we need to get to, so.
I would just also add to what you brought up. We did actually have a discussion about the specifics of particular kinds that are offered. That did come up. So I just wanted to let you know that, yes, thanks for bringing that up.
All right, I'm not seeing anyone else at the mic. Our next Board of Education meeting is September 12th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned. Have a great summer, everybody.